Today we're going to talk about trade unions. Trade unions sometimes are highly controversial. They tend to make lots and lots of news. Quite often in the United Kingdom, trade unions are strongest in the public sector. This can be seen on this graph, which covers trade union membership from 1995 through to 2016. You can see that public sector trade union membership has stayed about the same, at about just under 4 million, whereas private sector membership has gone down a little bit. The industries such as education, healthcare, which are in the public sector, they tend to have large trade union membership. And in the private sector in the United Kingdom, quite often things like the railways which are being privatised are still lots and lots of trade union membership. So when the railways go on strike, or teachers go on strike, or nurses take industrial action, that tends to get lots and lots of publicity in the media. All right. Trade unions therefore give their union members a collective bargaining. There's strength in numbers rather than each worker negotiating individually. Okay, and generally some of the things which they're trying to get for the workers are things like better pay, maybe better working conditions, shorter working hours, and if there are legal issues at work, quite often the trade union represents the workers. If trade unions are unhappy, they can take a wide range of different types of industrial action. They could strike. This is an example a couple of years ago of McDonald's workers going on strike. They can go slow. They can have an overtime ban. So if you're contracted just to work, say, 39 hours a week, you don't work 45 hours. This is the work to rule. This is the example I tend to give about work to rule. When I was a teenager, it always seems as if people were going on strike. And part of the reason for that was that, let's say my job is, all I basically do is my job is to take out light bulbs. That's what my job title is. I take out light bulbs. And someone else's job is to put in the light bulbs. So let's say I come to work one day and the light bulb is gone blank. So what I do is I go and I take the light bulb out. Now the employer may well say to me, well, you've taken that light bulb out, could you then go and put a new light bulb in? And what I say is, no, my job is to take the light bulb out. I would be taking someone else's job if I put in the light bulb, because the person who's sick, their job title is the person who puts in the light bulb. And that might seem a little stupid and silly, but that's kind of like when I was growing up, how contracts were written a little bit, because trade unions have lots and lots of power. Alright, but since like the 1980s, especially in some countries like the United Kingdom, trade union power seems to have diminished a lot. And some of the reasons why trade unions take industrial action, obviously they're there to protect the workers' interests. So if things like job losses or changing contracts, or because technology have been introduced, and that's why the trade unions maybe get a little bit agitated. Now, the workers are represented by the trade unions. Employers, an employer could be someone with a little small business and just employing one person, or it could be someone whose business is employing a million people. So there are employer associations who represent the interests of businesses, so they try and influence governments as well. So in the United Kingdom, it's called the Confederation of British Industry. When I lived in Sri Lanka, it was the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. And in the United Kingdom, the CBI represents 190,000 businesses, and it provides lots and lots of information to those businesses. And basically, it's there to try and promote policies which are in the interest of business. So the CBI was against Brexit because they believed it wouldn't be good for UK businesses, but also this maybe say to the government, don't increase the minimum wage by 25%. If you increase the minimum wage by 25%, UK businesses will sell a lot less products. Now, what type of action can employers take if they're angry? One of the things that I teach is something called a lockout. We don't allow the workers to come to work. It used to be 15, 20 years ago with American sports like the ice hockey, or hockey as you call it, basketball, NFL, baseball. Quite often the workers would go on strike, the millionaires would go on strike, and sometimes the employers would lock out these millionaire players. Okay? So obviously what the employers can do, they can negotiate, they can use public relations. If people like nurses go on strike, or if the fire engines stop running, and then maybe people die and things like that. If you're an employer, slightly unscrupulous, you can use that to your advantage using public relations. You can say, hey, we're a German car company. If you don't like what we're going to do, we'll just close the factory, we'll go to Poland. Then there might be, as I say, basically threaten people, or you can change contracts. One of the great things about introducing new technologies is you can change people's job titles and maybe reduce their pay as a result of that. Now, part of the resistance for change, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is the trade unions represent the workers, and it's in their interest for the number of workers in the workplace not to go down. Okay? Generally speaking, people don't like change. So when companies want to change things, then what happens is that people maybe don't react very well to that. So obviously, companies need to make sure they're communicating very, very clearly with people. If you don't communicate with people, then gossip starts. And as a result of that, then people start getting agitated. Alright? And some people say maybe it's the trade unions agitating. But equally it might be because the employer is not communicating clearly or answering questions. Then you have a vacuum and people try and fill the vacuum with the gossipy type things. So how can you come up with conflict resolution between the employer and the workers? You might have a no strike agreement. By the workers, for example, agree not to go on strike. You may have to, the employer may have to give lots of sweeteners, pay guarantees going forward. Maybe the employer doesn't want to have to deal with 6 different trade unions and may only wants to deal with 1 trade union. Employee participation in industrial democracy. In France, for example, in large companies, a member of the trade union is a member of the board of directors. Maybe as a result of that, the trade union better understands what is going on in the business and maybe then is less likely to ask for huge pay demands. And then the next thing we're going to look at, conciliation and arbitration. Now, in the United Kingdom, the conciliation arbitration is dealt with by an organisation called ACAS, which stands for Advisory Conciliation Arbitration, and that is used to try and find a resolution if there's a dispute between the employer and the employees, the trade unions. All right. So the trade union and the employer come around the table and they both state their opinion as to why we're going on strike. The employer may say, "This is our opinion," and ACAS's role is to try and find a solution. Depending on the type of arbitration which you're moving towards, that can be binding or non-binding. Okay? Most countries will have their own version of ACAS. Quite often, many countries where they have their own ACAS, it's set up by the government but is seen as being independent. Okay? And obviously, as a result of that, both parties are more likely to accept any sort of like a resolution. And are trade unions good for the employer? We now live in a very, very knowledge-based society. And if you look at a lot of the theories we do on the course to do with Hertzberg's motivators and hygiene factors, Matthew's getting to the top and self-actualization, Daniel Pink's theory, and obviously that is about trying to make sure that workers are entirely focused on their job, that they're highly motivated. If you believe that, then you'd think that probably trade unions are actually quite a good thing for the business, because then what the trade union is doing is they're maybe bringing problems to the employer, which the employer can solve, and if the employer tries to solve those or can solve those, then the workers are going to be happier. So I kind of think that it's in the self-interest of the employer to keep the workers happy, because then worker turnover goes down, worker engagement improves, you have happier customers, therefore you make more profit. If trade unions and the employer work towards common goals, and you can say this is vice versa, business success equals improved working conditions, or improved working conditions equals business success, then both sides win. Used to be, when I was a teenager, it was sort of as a war between the employer and trade unions. All right? I think the examiner would rather like you to think of both sides working closely together, and then both win. That's all for the bit.